Here we're told we have two parallel lines that are cut by a transversal. And we're asked to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. Now, angle 1 and angle 7 are alternate exterior angles. So alternate means they are on the opposite sides, the alternate sides of the red line, the red transversal. And exterior means they're on the outside of the two parallel lines, the blue lines. So we can make the statement angle 1 is congruent to angle 7 because of this reason. Alternate exterior angles are congruent. But that would just be a two-step proof. We wouldn't need this line and this line. This question is asking us to prove angle 1 is congruent to angle 7 in 4 steps, choosing from the statements and reasons below the table. So there's a few different ways we can do that. Let's start with one option. So I want to say angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. So I'm going to start off with angle 1 and think, what do I know about angle 1? We're going to try to make a path, a logical path, to prove that it's congruent to angle 7. So what is angle 1 congruent to? Well, angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 because when you have two intersecting lines like that blue and red line, the angles that are across from each other are congruent because they are vertical angles. All right, so angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So what do we know about angle 3? What is it congruent to? Well, angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. Angle 3 and angle 7 are in the same spots. They're both below the blue lines, the parallel lines. They're both to the right of the transversal, the red line. So these are called corresponding angles. They're in the same spot. They correspond to one another. Now the question is, can I now then conclude that angle 1 is congruent to angle 7 using my statements in line 2 and 3? What do you notice about line 2 and 3? They both have angle 3. Line 2 is saying angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Line 3 is saying that angle 7 is congruent to angle 3. So angle 1 and angle 7 are both congruent to angle 3. So that means that angle 1 and angle 7 must be the same measure. Why is that? That's because of the transitive property. So this would be my proof. Now I want to go over another way you could have done this. Another answer that would be correct. So again, let's start with angle 1. What do we know about angle 1? Besides that it's congruent to angle 3. What else is it congruent to? Angle 5. Angle 1 and angle 5 are both above the blue line, above the parallel line, and to the left of the red transversal. These are corresponding angles. They're in the same spot, so they're congruent. So now we're at angle 5. What do we know about angle 5? What's it congruent to besides angle 1? It's congruent to angle 7 because again, when you have two intersecting lines like that blue and red line, the angles across from each other are congruent because they are vertical angles. And then again, now we conclude angle 1 is congruent to angle 7 because angle 1 is congruent to angle 5 and angle 7 is congruent to angle 5. So they're both congruent to angle 5, so they must be the same. That's because of the transitive property. So these are the two ways you can solve this. You can prove this in 4 steps. There's also another way you could do it that takes more steps. Let me just demonstrate that. Now I'm going to do this in a more abbreviated process. Remember, angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent because they're vertical angles. Now I'm going to use this other reason here. Alternate interior angles are congruent. What are alternate interior angles? Well, alternate means they're on the opposite sides. So 3 is on the right side and 5 is on the left side. And then interior means they are in between the two parallel lines. So I can say angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. And then again, if angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 and angle 5 is congruent to angle 3, then angle 1 and angle 5 must be the same. Must be the same measure because of the transitive property. So now we know angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. What do we know about angle 5? Angle 5 and angle 7 are congruent to each other. Remember, those are vertical lines. Vertical angles. And then if angle 1 is congruent to angle 5 and angle 7 is also congruent to angle 5, then angle 1 and 7 must be the same measure because they are both congruent to angle 5. So this proves that angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. So this would work as well, but this would take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. So for this state test question, you couldn't use this pathway to prove angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. You're not going to use this reason because it would take too many steps. And it doesn't fit into the table that they're giving us here to use. So please let me know if you have any other questions on this one.